Hello, my fellow Ruby enthusiasts. It's time for another model showdown. Today's battle will include Kimi K2 Instruct. On the capability side, you can see here they claim unmatched coding prowess with high scores on some of the most popular benchmarks like SWE Bench and Live Code Bench. Here you can see it claims to write, debug, and deploy code across languages like Python, JavaScript, and Rust. I'm not sure how it's going to do on Ruby and Rails, but we're going to find out today. And then we have Grok Code Fast 1, which was recently introduced, and they really emphasize the speed of its ability to generate code or responses. It claims to be particularly adept at TypeScript, Python, Java, Rust, C++, and Go. And once again, today we're going to see how it does on Ruby and Rails. And the final model in our shootout is going to be Claude Sonnet 4, which of course is my daily driver, and so far has outperformed everything else I've used on Ruby on Rails. Let's see how it stacks up against the other two models. All three of these models are available in Cursor, reducing the effect of tooling and agents on the outcome. Today I will be creating a basic SaaS application that allows users to rent out just about anything they own. I'm calling it Help You Rent. This application will be built using my usual technology choices, including Ruby on Rails version 8.0.2.1, SQLite for the application database, Tailwind CSS, import maps for JavaScript packages, and Rails authentication. I have already set up the project along with some cursor rules to help guide our models. I will be feeding the models the same prompts, well, until they require custom prompts to get back on or stay on course. All right, we're going to start the showdown with the model that I'm least familiar with, Grok Code Fast 1. Let's begin by priming the context with our first prompt. And Grok looks like it's living up to its name. That was very fast. It did not take that long at all. Looks like it has everything that I would expect from a summary. So far it's off to a good start. Okay, now we're going to hit it with what should be our biggest prompt. This is just basically going over the application, most of the requirements for the MVP, and then asking it to generate a plan. Once again, that was very quick, and we're going to go ahead and I'm going to take a minute and review this, and then I will score it. It looks like Grok did a great job coming up with the plan. You can see we have our 7 to-dos here. Each one of them is a phase. Okay, now we're just going to go ahead and get us started with phase 1, our models and database schema. Grok was able to build the models and the migrations in about 56 seconds, which felt really fast. We'll see how that stacks up. And now we're going to move on to phase 2, which is authentication and authorization. We are done with phase 2. It took Grok about 1 minute and 47 seconds, which still feels fast, but not quite as fast as I was expecting, given how quickly it created our models. And now we're ready to move on to phase 3, implementing the asset management system for rental owners, including full CRUD operations. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Before we continue, I would like to tell you about my software development agency, Optimal Cadence. At Optimal Cadence, we specialize in Ruby on Rails and agentic and generative AI programming. Here's what a few of our customers have to say. I contacted Optimal Cadence after reading a blog post that resonated with me. As an IT manager and software developer with over 20 years in the industry, I witnessed a significant increase in the complexity and cost of software development. Kurt's AI development skills combined with Ruby on Rails, dubbed the one-person framework, have changed the game. We have never seen productivity like this before, and for those who question the quality of AI-generated code, our code has nearly 100% test coverage, is well documented, and is routinely scanned for architecture and security best practices. We lost our Ruby on Rails developer before we could complete our MVP, so we reached out to Optimal Cadence to find a replacement. Kurt has exceeded our expectations in every way. He is self-guided and communicates effectively. Not only have we met the milestones of the MVP as it was defined, but we have been able to increase the scope of the project significantly. Highly recommended. If you are looking for someone to build an MVP, maintain or enhance your Rails project, or even make your Rails project more AI-friendly with documentation and automated testing, visit optimalcadence.com and check us out. Now back to the video. Okay, we are done with phase 3, and Grok was able to pull that in 2 minutes and 2 seconds, which seems, again, like a pretty quick speed. We'll see how it stacks up. All right, it's ready to move on to phase 4, which is category management for administrators. Grok was able to finish phase 4 in 1 minute and 21 seconds, and now we're going to move on to phase 5. Phase 5 took it a little longer, but it got stuck, and I actually waited for a while and then finally prompted it, and it picked up kind of where it left off. So I think that might be kind of an anomaly, but it took it 5 minutes and 59 seconds. Let's move on to phase 6. Grok finished phase 6 in 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Now let's move on to the final phase, phase 7. We are now done with phase 7, and we finished phase 7 in 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Along the way, Grok created some test users with different roles, which I think is fantastic. That helps us test this out. But when I tried a couple of these, I'm just running into nothing but errors on the UI side of it. So I'm going to have Grok create some automated testing and see if it can fix these errors for me without me going through each one of them individually. Okay, it's been about 6 minutes, and Grok has written a lot of tests, automated tests for the models and the controllers, and is reporting back that everything should be working, and that we should have confidence that the core models and business logic are functioning correctly. I'm still getting tons of errors on the front end. I haven't been able to view a single page yet because the views, I think, are not set up correctly. So I'm going to run this prompt and see if I can get the views generated correctly. So I spent about the last 15 minutes testing the application and having Grok fix bugs. Grok's compute time is roughly 10 minutes regarding these bugs. And I would say the user interface is probably really about maybe 70% done. There's still a lot of issues with the UI, but I'm not going to go through and fix those. I think I've done enough now to get a sense for the model and how it performs and where it excels and where its shortcomings are. But here's a quick review of what it's done so far. The user interface is actually simple, but it's a pretty nice looking user interface. You can see here we have a footer with an about page, and we have a contact page. I'm not sure on the privacy. We don't have the privacy page yet, or the terms, obviously, because we would need to create those. I'm sure it doesn't want to create those. We have a copyright notice down here below. And then we kind of have some of the assets. These are seed files that it created. If I go to take a look at one, however, you can see it's that part of the UI isn't functional. I can do view all assets, and that part of the UI isn't functional, so those would clearly still need to be fixed. I can look at the categories, and again, this isn't functional, unfortunately, and I don't think any one of them are. Yeah, so this one's coming back with a different error message, so I think it's because some of these have seed files in them, some of them don't, so we're getting different error messages between them. The view all assets doesn't work. Let's see, getting started. That just takes you to the login screen, which is fine. So I can now log in. I can log in as admin. And when I log in, it takes me to the admin dashboard, and you can see this dashboard looks quite nice, actually. It has quite a bit going on here. Total number of users, assets, rentals, categories. And then you can see some statistics, as far as assets, how many are approved, how many are pending approval, and how many have been suspended. Same thing with some user statistics here. And then you can see pending approvals, which I can theoretically approve here, or I can view. And when I view it, actually, this looks like this screen's done, and it looks quite nice, actually. and then I can approve the asset. Nope, so I'm getting a routing error there. Let's see if I can go back to assets. Nope, can't even go back to assets. So you can see a lot of bugs here, but again, generally, I think this looks really good appearance-wise. Rentals pending approval. So yeah, now there's a rental, which I didn't ask for admins to approve rentals. That should be more of an owner responsibility. But this gives you an idea of where this is at. Again, I can come over here with categories and I can see my categories. This should allow an admin to manage this according to the requirements, but it looks like I can just view them. I can't manage them. If I go to this page, well, it's broken. If I look at the vehicles, same thing. Browse equipment. So all of these are broken, but I don't see a way to add new subcategories to these, which is kind of interesting because this was working before. It just didn't allow me to add subcategories, or I don't see where I can create new categories. So clearly this is not complete. But once again, I think the appearance of it is really good, and I'll summarize this at the end of the video. Okay, now we're ready to move over to the second model, which is going to be Kimi K2 Instruct. You can see I have that set up here in Cursor. And we're going to go ahead and do our first prompt, which is going to prime our context. Okay, Kimi was able to match Grok in speed. It also generated this in 6 seconds, which is pretty impressive. And let's take a look at the results. And so I'm going to say it's not quite as detailed regarding the rules. I added some specific rules about using hot wire and stimulus to create a spa-like experience. And it doesn't say anything about that here. It does say hot wire plus turbo and stimulus, but it doesn't talk about using turbo frames and stimulus to create a more reactive experience. Okay, now we're going to give Kimi our requirements, and we're going to ask for it to put together a plan. And it looks like it is actually starting implementing phase 1. It came up with 12 to-dos versus the 7 that Grok came up with. So it looks like it's doing a little bit more granular. That's more granular tasks here. Kimi finished our planning and our first phase in 2 minutes and 7 seconds, which is also very impressive. So I'm impressed with the speed of Kimi and Grok so far. Let's see how it does on the next phase. One thing I've noticed about using Kimi in Cursor is it definitely does very few words per line. Sometimes in some cases, just a single word per line in the output. Okay, Kimi is done with phase 2. Again, the output is kind of difficult to read with all of this line wrapping, but it shouldn't affect the quality of the code, hopefully. But here's where we're at. So it took it 2 minutes and 7 seconds, and it completed, I think, what it believes were all of the tasks involved with generating the application, which surprised me. And now it's asking if we want to proceed with testing the application. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Okay, so it's added some additional to-dos. So it was done with everything that it had originally identified, but it's since added another 8 to-dos to the list. So it seems Kimi is stuck in a loop again. It's trying to fix this syntax on creating these enums, and it seems to get stuck. So I'm going to have to remind it again that it's stuck. And it still appears to be stuck. Yeah, it still seems to be stuck in this loop. So I'm going to stop it. So now it thinks it has fixed the issue. So I'm going to exit the Rails console, re-enter, and see. Nope, it still has not fixed the enum syntax. Okay, I went through and fixed all of the enum syntax to make sure that's all correct, and now the server is booting up. When I went to the UI, however, similar to the experience I had with Grok, it's just giving me all sorts of errors around controllers that don't have the proper routes in them or actions defined in them. even though they're defined in the route file, and also things like missing views. So I'm just going to give it this generic prompt and see if it'll go through and check all of that and fix anything that needs to be fixed. Okay, once again, it looks like Kimi is in a loop. And let's see if we can get it out of a loop. So Kimi seems to be stuck here. It says it's looking through all the controllers and views and ensuring that all of the controllers and views exist, but it just seems to be stuck again. And once again, we're stuck in a loop. So I'm not going to go any further with Kimi. This is the second time I've tried to use Kimi K2, and I had a similar experience. Last time I didn't use it in Cursor, I actually used it in Aider. And again, I couldn't get anywhere with it. I really struggled with it. I do know of another developer, a talented developer, who's been using Kimi and having some success with it. So I'm not sure exactly if I just don't know how to talk to her to what's going on here. But again, I'm going to abandon that, but I'm going to take a second and show you some of the screens that it generated, and so that we can see them in comparison to the other two models. So right now I'm logged as an owner, and this is my the page I land on. If I access the root URL, I can go to the owner/dashboard, and this is what I get. If I try to click on add a new item, I get a routing error. So, you can see here that it does have some stuff on here. I'm not super impressed with it when comparing it to what Grok produced. Let's try this as an admin. And as an admin, I also land on this root page, and let's see if there's an admin dashboard. And it's just an empty index file. So that's the end of Kimi. I'm going to call this a fail, to be honest with you. Kimi was also pretty fast when it was generating the code, but it looks like it just didn't generate a lot of the code. So it was very quick at generating nothing or very little. So that's Kimi. We're going to now move on to the reigning champion, as far as I'm concerned, the model I use every day, and that is Claude Sonnet 4. Okay, here we are on Claude 4 Sonnet, a brand new context, and I'm going to give it our context priming prompt, and we will see how it does. So that took Claude 4 Sonnet thinking model 32 seconds, which is significantly slower than the other two models, but I also feel like it's a lot more thorough. So now we're going to go ahead and fire off our requirements prompt that's asking for Claude 4 Sonnet to come up with a plan. So it took Claude 34 seconds to come up with our plan. It didn't start implementing like Kimi did. It just came up with a plan. But what I like about it is it came up with our 11 to-dos here, which they all seem reasonable. I think it's taking the right approach. But also gave me a very detailed description of what each of these phases are. In the last paragraph, it just asked me, do we want to begin phase 1, which is implementing the data models? And I'm just going to say yes. Let's proceed with phase 1. So I can see as it generates these models here that it's in creating them initially with the wrong syntax for enums, just like Kimi did, which I expect this is very common, but it did pick up in the rules that I told it to use the Rails 8 syntax, and it corrected itself and it fixed them without me telling it to. Okay, that took Claude 4 minutes and 44 seconds, which again is slower than the other two models. But once again, I feel like it was a lot more thorough. And like I said, I could see it go through there and correcting mistakes it made, kind of testing everything as it goes to ensure that everything is correct. And then the output is, again, much more detailed and professional. It tells me exactly what it did on each of the models, how it implemented the various functions. And then it says it created test users, so it created some seed data here. Owner 1, owner 2, example, renter 1, renter 2. It did a really good job. So we're going to go ahead and tell it to move on to phase 2. Sonnet is done with phase 2. It took it about 4 minutes and 25 seconds. And again, that's longer, like 2 minutes longer than the other two models for doing similar tasks. But once again, you can see how thorough it is in describing the work that it did. And once again, I saw it testing everything as it generated the code and validating that everything was functioning as expected. So we have finished 9 out of the 11 to-dos. The only 2 to-dos remaining are to build out the views and forms for the user interactions and style with Tailwind CSS. So let's move on to the next phase. So it took Claude Sonnet 6 minutes and 42 seconds to build out the user interface for this thing, which is, again, a lot longer than the other 2 models. But again, I feel like it did a much more thorough job, but we'll make that final call as soon as I actually open up the user interface and test it. So right out of the gate, Claude Sonnet 4 created a pretty impressive application. I did run into a couple of routing errors that I had it correct, and then a couple of missing views, and I think there are still some missing views, but I feel like this is a pretty good time to stop and show you what I've got so far. I would say as far as code generation time on this, it's going to be around 15 or 16 minutes, which is pretty impressive for what we have here. Of course, there was me coming up with prompts and going back and forth and testing and stuff to get it to that point. All in, I'd say I'm probably a half hour to maybe 40 minutes on this thing as it sits. And here is what it looks like if you are not authenticated into the system. You can see these are all of our assets here, and I can search for an asset here and clear it. I can filter by categories and then subcategories. And again, I can clear it. I can view an asset here, but I'm not able to book it, obviously. You can see right here, upcoming bookings. So it looks like there's already been an approved booking for this for September 13th and 14th. So if I'm going to need it on those days, I can tell that it's not going to be available for me. It shows me my rental rates, my security deposit, terms and conditions, and everything here. But I can't do anything, obviously, unless I sign in. So I'm going to go to the sign-in page, and I'm going to sign in as a renter. And then as a renter here, I'm going to look at my rentals, and I can see I have this rental, which we saw for that particular drill. And I can see that it's rented and it's been improved. I can cancel my rental. I can view the details on my rental. And if I look in here, I can see cancel, view asset, back to my rentals. These are actions are clearly cramped in here, but that wouldn't be too hard to have Sonnet fix. And let's pick something else to rent. I'm going to say I want to rent this truck so that I can carry that drill home. So here it is. I want to select my dates. And you may not see this because OBS Studio doesn't pick up date pickers, but there is a date picker here. So I'm going to rent it for Saturday and return it on Sunday. And I'm going to add a special request. I'm going to say rent gas. And then you can see in here the details, terms and conditions, and everything like this. This is seed data that was generated. It has a security deposit of $500. I'm going to request the booking. And the booking has been requested. Again, we have these actions down here that seem a little cramped, and I'm getting my notification up here, but I can edit my request, looks like. I can cancel my request, I can view the asset, or I can go back to my rental. So now in my rentals, I see that I have 2. I have the one pending review for my pickup truck, and then I have the approved drill rental, and then I can look at these based on their status as well. And so now that's my experience as a renter. I'm going to sign out. Now I'm going to sign up as the owner. So as an owner, I can also rent things, obviously, and so that's going to be this page. I'm going to show my rentals, which I don't have any yet. I could rent things, and they would show up here. And now I'm going to look at my assets. And it looks like owner 2 has the pickup truck. Owner 1 has the drill. So I'm going to go in here, and I can see in here, my assets, live and rentable, are 3. I can add a new asset, it looks like, which is pretty cool. And then that asset would need to be approved by an administrator. And we'll look at that in the administrator. I'm not going to add one now, but I think we can get the point on that. So I'm going to come into the details on my DWalt. And I can see in here, it kind of has some statistics about it, which I can edit this asset, edit that data. I can view the public listing. I can manage rental requests, which we'll look at in a second. I can edit the details for this, and I can delete the asset. And so now we have this one rental here. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say, let's hit it here. I'm guessing if I would have hit this, okay, this goes directly to the rental. Oh, that's kind of cool. So this is the rental that was already approved. This is seed data. And you can see here, It has the timeline, which is pretty cool. And it has rental information up here, information about the renter, what it is being rented, the asset details. I can contact the renter, which I'm pretty sure that's not going to work yet. Oh, it will pull up my email client. I can view the asset details. So that's that. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as the other owner. That way I can see if we have our pickup truck. Okay, so there's our pickup truck, my rentals, none, of course. Let's view the details on the pickup truck. And I can see I have this renter looking to rent it, pending information. Again, I can do all the same things here. I can view the rental request, or I can just view this specific rental if I want. Either way, I think I can get there. Okay, so this is kind of nice. So it shows up here, and I can see all of my rentals here, my requests. And then I can approve or decline this one, or I can view the details on it. So I'm going to go ahead and approve it. Okay, it looks like it didn't, the redirect didn't work. That's okay. That could easily be fixed, but it looks like it was in fact approved. So it just, on the response, it didn't come through right. So yeah, now I can see the timeline show it was approved. I got all my rental information up here. Okay, cool. So that's owner 2. Now I'm going to sign out. I'm going to sign in as an admin. And now here I'm coming in here as the admin. You can see up here, I can look at, again, I can rent things too. And I can show my asset rentals, or my assets here. I can add my own assets and rent them out. And here's the admin dashboard. And over here I can see recent activity, which is kind of cool. That's showing the 2 rentals. Pretty neat. And then again, you get to see kind of the timeline of this recent activity, which is pretty cool. I can view the details of each of these rents. Oh, that's kind of interesting. So now as an admin, I can come in here and I can view the renter profile or the asset owner profile. I can contact support, which I'm not sure what that's going to do. And I can view asset details. So the details for this particular asset. So let's view the asset details first. Sure enough, I can revoke my approval on the asset. I can edit the asset. I can view the owner profile from here. I'm going to go back to that page. I am going to continue to demonstrate the impressive renter, owner, and admin capabilities of the Claude Sonnet version of Help You Rent in the background while I wrap this video up. It's clear to me that Claude Sonnet is the winner in this shootout. It's also probably the most expensive and probably the slowest, but at the end of the day, I get more done with Claude Sonnet than I do any other models because of its accuracy. Its accuracy on Ruby on Rails application is unsurpassed. I've tried a lot of models, some of them that I review on my channel, some of them that I don't. For example, I actually did spend about a half of a day using GPT-5 when it was offered free of charge. And I was using it on one of my customer applications, so an application that I'm paid to work on and that I wrote using Claude Sonnet primarily. And it did a pretty good job. I was pretty impressed with it. It wasn't a greenfield project, but in the middle of the day, I shifted back to Claude Sonnet because it's just slightly better on everything than even GPT-5. But clearly in this shootout, like I said, Claude Sonnet is heads above the rest. Second is Grok. Grok did a pretty good job. The only problem I had with Grok is it missed a lot of things, like in the routing, like a route and would point to a controller that didn't exist, and then a controller's action might try to forward to a view that didn't exist, and it created the view, but it was with the wrong name, like it was trying to create an index view, but it created a show view instead. And so it just missed things like that. It also messed with the Rails 8 authentication, so it didn't work properly. So I just felt like it was too far off for me to bother spending a lot more time on it. It is fast. It was one of the fastest models, obviously. Kimi was also very fast, but truthfully, I only spent about 4 minutes and 30 seconds on Kimi, and then it just kept getting in loops. And it just was frustrating to me. And then I looked at the code that it did generate, the models and stuff, and it was off. And so I'm just not having any luck with Kimi, to be honest with you. I've tried it once before. I used it in Aider, and it didn't work for me. I do know people who are having success with it, even on a Rails project, but I haven't had any success with it on Rails. And again, I don't know how these models do on non-Ruby and Rails platforms. I'd be interested if you have experience with them to drop a comment below and let us know how it does on other things. I'm just using Rails for all of my projects right now, and I can just tell you that Claude Sonnet is a cut above everything else that is out there. Now, I will admit I haven't tried Opus because I haven't wanted to lay down the money for that. It's a very expensive model, but maybe one day I'll try Opus 4 and see how it competes. But at this point, I don't see any real reason to change. I'm getting everything I want on my own projects and also on my customers' projects out of Claude 4 Sonnet. So I'm just going to continue to stick with it. I'm going to try virtually every new model that comes out, but unless it impresses me as much as Sonnet does, then Sonnet is going to continue to be my daily driver. Anyway, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and give me a like. I would really appreciate it. And if you want to see more content like this and you haven't already, please subscribe. I would really appreciate that. It will really help the channel. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.